Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another incredible episode of the Gathering Movement. I am here today with the incredible Tamara, and we are going to be talking about unlocking the power of your womb. So welcome, Tamara.
Thanks, Bridget. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I love this topic personally. I'm really excited to be talking about this because I think this is very, very important for both women and men to be understanding the power of the womb.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love for you to share a little bit about how your work in the world empowers people to be a leader of their own life.
That is a wonderful question. Yeah. Well, I work specifically with women. That's what I know. And this work empowers women to know themselves truly, like in a more true way. We live in a culture that is not woman friendly. And so we are really divorced from our true nature as a result. And as a result of that, a lot of women experience a lot of self-hatred, self-deprecation, self-doubt. And the work that I do reverses that. Like we unlearn self-hatred and we relearn to really connect with the most powerful, most feminine parts of our body. And then we're living from a place of like unconditional love, unconditional, all the juiciness, unconditional ease and grace. Like yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why do you feel like we're so disconnected from this body part? And actually, I want to take a step back because it's not just one body part. I'd like for you to explain like what the womb, what does that word mean?
Oh, okay. Well, for me, and this is my embodied experience, and everyone's going to have a different experience. That's how this sort of work works. The womb is a space. It's an energetic space. So you don't have to have a uterus. And it's kind of like the hidden chakra, if you're a yogini, right? It's the space between the root and the navel. And it's just this energetic place that is like full of ancient wisdom, like all your ancestors live there. It's a place that's connected to the womb of the world. And men can connect with this too. I mean, we all come from the womb. We all spend time there in this like place between places. And you know what? It is much more than the womb and womb space. Like we also have vagina, we have clitoris, we have vulva, we have this whole Shakti bowl that is really the seat of our power. And we're very disconnected from down there.
Yes. Why are we so disconnected? And I like remember learning about sex ed, right, in our PE or our health classes. And it was like, ew, it was such a thing where it felt uncomfortable. And I think for many people, they can relate to that experience of being like, I don't really get it. Why do we have to have this class? But now, I mean, I'm so open to this type of work. So I'd love for you to share, like, why is there this disconnection in our society?
Well, thousands of years of patriarchy is the answer. But really, what it boils down to is like women are extremely, extremely powerful when they're connected to themselves in this true way. And it's a tough one to sort of boil down. But I think what it comes to is at some point, somebody decided that they didn't like the way they felt in a woman's power, maybe, and had to shut it down. And then that sort of continued on over the years to a place now where we're raised, and this is starting to change, thankfully. But I mean, my mom and her mom were raised without even having a name for their yoni, for their pussy. Like there was no talking about it. And so when you don't have a name for something, like, and when it is talked about, you can sense your parents' discomfort. I mean, what's a little girl supposed to think?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it is a really exciting time to be living in right now because
Mm.
I know not just you, but I know many women who are now helping other women access the power of their womb space, not only for like the physical connection, but the sexual connection, the sensual connection, the business connection, the birth connection. Like, oh, it's magical. So there is this revitalization going on, and we are reconnecting to this space. For you, like, how did you find yourself, or how did the work find you?
Well, I mean, not unlike many women, it was in some of my darkest moments, being on my knees and having to completely surrender to my darkness, my pain, grief. So in that space of surrender, I'm a Kundalini Yogini, I'm a teacher, and had a very disciplined practice. And in my grief of losing my father, none of that worked. None of that, I couldn't even do it. All I could do was tend to my own grief. And so in that way, I let go of a whole way of caring for myself. And what I'm trying to say is it ended up in me really being fully present to my feelings in a way that was very painful and felt like I was going to die. But in those moments of really being in my body, my womb started, connecting with me, reaching out to me, calling my name. And then I just started listening, and it took me on this whole beautiful path. And I'm so glad it did.
You're not alone in that. Sometimes it's our darkest moments that bring us to these places, and how beautiful that we can have the gratitude looking back and saying, I'm grateful I was able to face some of my deepest fears or my deepest emotions, or those things that I typically suppressed or hidden, to be able to unlock the power of your womb. And now you get to help people do the same thing.
And it's not always in those dark moments. Like, there are practices that are effing divine where it's all pleasure. It's all pleasure. And then the pleasure awakens more pleasure. So it's not always the dark night of the soul. Like, there are practices that we do, that I teach, that that connects you in a very pleasurable way.
So how can people start connecting with this space? We'll start with women, obviously.
Well, men can too. It's just, I'm not a man. So, I teach from experience, and I, and the women that I teach, I have their stories. So I think your question is, how can we start to connect? Well, really just by slowing down. And if a woman is still bleeding, if you're still menstruating, the one thing that lots of people recommend, but I really recommend, is while you're menstruating, is to find space for more rest and more stillness, and go within, whatever that looks like for you, meditating, going for a walk in nature, because that little bit of inner connection, inner acknowledgement in your most powerful part of your cycle is going to affect the rest of your menstrual cycle. And in that way, you're honoring your body, and all the body wants is acknowledgement, and then magic starts happening.
As you're saying this, I'm thinking of the many women in the world right now who are dealing with some kind of challenge in this area of the body. Like, personally, I was diagnosed with PCOS. I do not have any symptoms anymore, so that is incredible. I had like vulvodynia when I was a kid, very painful sex, very painful periods. Is this partially, one part, maybe because we are disconnected from this area of our body?
Well, yes and no. I think some people have medical conditions, and we're blessed to have doctors who can help. And I think a lot of what women suffer from is as a result of disconnection. Yes, from the womb, from our blood, from our sexual pleasure, from, like I said before, it's the seat of our power. It's like the direct path to ascension. And I think a lot of women experience a deep longing there's no words around it. And I think this is what we're longing for, because once you start doing it, once you start practicing it, you realize how essential it is to a woman thriving. That if we're disconnected, the body's going to start to get your attention.
Yeah, I agree. What does it look like when a woman is connected to the womb space and she is in her power? Like, what would be some examples of that woman who's living this connected life?
Yeah, well, one of the things that occurs really quickly for women who work with me is self-acceptance. That they're no longer fighting against themselves and the way that they are. That this like wave of self-acceptance washes over them. Other ways is that this like ease comes in, so that we can sort of drop the need to control, the need to manipulate situations or overly manage, that I think a lot of women can do. We drop into a place of ease, and that shifts life in a big way. And another thing, because the pussy, the vagina, mimics the vocal cords and the mouth so deeply. So automatically we're awakened to a deeper truth, and we're able to gently and sweetly share that through our voice. And a lot of women struggle here, including me, with the throat. And it's hard to put words to this because it's so mysterious and so subtle and life-changing all at once.
Yeah, and I love, of course, you bringing up the voice. Do you ever work with any women where you are practicing mantra together or humming or some kind of sound to ignite not only the voice, but the connection to the womb space?
Well, the last program that I did was a 40-day program, and we chanted a mantra for the sacred feminine in combination with like an introduction to relating to yourself as a cyclical person. And it really helped to ground the teachings, but also mantra, as you know, changes our brain chemistry. It changes our thought patternings. And so the teachings, the changes that we're trying to make, the things we're trying to embody, it sort of lands easier because the ego is not resisting quite as much. And a lot of women really loved that combination. And for some women, it did bring up a lot of sadness. And I think that's just part of this work. Like, there's so much shame and oppression in our bones and blood that it's normal for sadness to be there. I love emotions.
Me too. I think that they're truly just a doorway to something greater and something deeper within us all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to take a few steps back because I asked this question before, but I said, of course, only women. And the reason I said that is because I actually do believe that men should be a part of this conversation. And if we were to, educate men on women's connection to their bodies, on women's cyclical nature, this would not only change the relationship between a woman and a man if they're in that type of partnership, but it could really change the way that society works, like at large. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. And my first sort of thought that comes to me is that when women do this work, we start to embody more power, more pleasure, and that automatically affects the men in our lives. And we speak differently, and our voices hold more power and landing capacity. So that, but also, my husband, I'm very lucky to have such an open-minded, supportive husband. When I started doing this work, I had to do the scary thing of asking for more help when I had my period. And I thought I was going to be totally rejected, dismissed. And instead, now we're in this beautiful rhythm where I get cared for more so that I can rest and not be I mean, it benefits him, to be sure. But I think, yeah, like we come into a more balanced relationship with each other when we understand each other's true nature. And a lot of women are unhappy. A lot of women want more from their marriage. They want more from their life. And that can turn into bitterness and resentment. And when men understand how to treat women, I don't know, that sounds bad, but when men understand a woman's cyclical nature,
yes,
then that understanding automatically, it's like this gateway to love. It's a gateway to acceptance. And then, yeah, everything shifts. And wouldn't it be great if we had like workplaces where, hey, you know, today I'm day one of my cycle. I'm no good to you. I'm going to stay at home. And then I guarantee you productivity would skyrocket because women would be working with their true nature instead of against it, and then experiencing burnout and all the other stuff.
And this is why I think it's important, the work that you're doing, because you're not only educating women on this connection, on the cycle, but you're also bringing the power back to the woman to have these conversations with her partner, with her husband, or her dad, like any men in her life. And I've experienced this personally. I am also very grateful. My husband's very open to my conversations. I'm like, I'm in my luteal phase. This is typically my shadow phase. Like, you know, just work with me right now, work with me. Mm-hmm. And that has been very eye-opening. So just like you're saying, I couldn't agree more. Imagine if more men were just understanding or aware, and also more women realize that their cyclical nature is one of their greatest gifts.
Oh, yes. Yes. And so like, I meet a lot of women who really are hard on themselves because certain times of their cycle are hard. Well, honey, it's not your cycle. The cycle's not the problem. Like, it's our relationship with the cycle. It's our disconnection that creates the problems. And just this general attitude of such diminishment around what are really the most powerful moments that a woman has over and over and over again in her life. Yeah, the whole menstrual process is quite remarkable to me in terms of preparation for monumental spiritual tasks that women come into contact with, like childbirth, postpartum, and perimenopause and menopause. These are huge spiritual gateways, and our period prepares us for those. So again, like, it's no wonder women are suffering and are challenged by these moments in their life, because sometimes when you're looking at perimenopause, you have 45 years of suppressed everything, menstrual visioning, anger, you name it, that comes up for the first time. And imagine that woman had been consciously relating to herself her whole life instead.
I'm almost speechless because the way that you just put that was beautiful. And I haven't really thought about how this affects us later on in life. And I liked how you said these are spiritual gateways for us as women. How incredible. If there is anyone listening today who maybe has questions or doubts about their connection with their body, what kind of advice or wisdom would you share with them?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's really common to doubt that, because we don't live in a culture that supports it or glorifies it at all. So you're really doing something revolutionary, but believe in it. Keep like following those whispers that call. And what I try and do with some of my pregnant clients who realize they need to trust their body to give birth, but have never trusted their body in their lives, is to start this dialogue with the body, you know, to shift your awareness from in the mind down into the womb space, even if there's nothing there at first. Just, you know, saying hello. It sounds really silly, but it's really quite magnificent because it's acknowledgement. You're acknowledging that this part of you is there. And just over and over again, this practice, daily practice of acknowledging the womb space. And she'll just like blossom like a flower under your adoration, under your acknowledgement and attention. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Yeah. It sounds like really one of the first ways is just simple dialogue, simple connection, acknowledgement that there is a connection to be made, that you can talk to this space of your body. It can talk back to you. I also believe.
Yep.
Very cool. For you, has there been any like inspirational teachers or readings, or, how did you learn more deeply about this work?
Yeah. To pop up right away. Sorry, I just
popped in, popped out.
Well, no, they're there, but I'm thinking like, okay, popped in, popped out, a whole other thing popped in.
I see.
Yes. So some of my favorite, I want to say her name right. Where's my book? It's Uma Dinsmore Tooley. She's in the United Kingdom, and she wrote this like massive textbook on womb-friendly yoga. That's sort of what opened my eyes to all this, because I'm a yoga teacher and I'm teaching mostly women. And so there was a huge disconnect happening for me as a teacher. That was I supporting them, to really connect with themselves, or was I teaching them to override themselves? So that's a whole other podcast, maybe, like womb-friendly yoga. And then Mama Gina, I don't know her whole name, but she wrote the book Pussy, A Reclamation. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a pretty life-changing book. Yeah.
It's funny. My friend Gina, who also works with like the menstrual cycle, she's always recommended that book. She's like, you need to read Pussy. It's amazing.
Yeah. And the practices in it are like really practical. This is the sacred feminine, this embodiment work. It is mysterious, totally. And also the practices are really simple, really practical. You just need someone to hold you accountable, show you what they are. This is how we implement it. And then this is how we talk about it.
Helpful. So next steps for you, how are you now working with people? What is your world up to these days?
Well, on April 12th, I have a new course starting. It's called The Spiral Path. And I've been working on this internally for a long time, and it's finally come to fruition. So I'm really excited. And it's for women who are curious about this work and they want to go deeper. Like I said, you might have an intellectual understanding about the goddess energy or sacred feminine, but embodiment work is about feeling that in your body. And how do we do that? So the course it contains a daily practice that's really simple, really fun, to connect you with your womb space, awaken that voice, to help you to embody your big emotions so that you can embody the qualities of the sacred feminine as well. And then it's done in community, which is the most magical ingredient, is other women who do this work and are witnessed by other women, and life changes, I'm telling you. So 3 months, we have 3 lunar phases or menstrual phases where we're learning to relate to ourselves cyclically, and then going deeper into these teachings. Like, what does each part of your cycle have to teach you? How do you greet these monumental spiritual tasks around childbirth, perimenopause, menopause? And how do we awaken pleasure and live our lives so that we're fulfilling our truest desires?
Okay, well, that is magical. Magical. And I can say from personal experience, you and I have a mutual friend, Allison Canales, and I was able to do her course called Womb Alchemy a couple of years ago. And it was very similar to the work that you're doing now, just helping women connect to this cycle, doing so in community, you know, speaking openly about preconceived notions or your connection. And it was so life-changing for me. So I am sure that anyone who comes into the spiral path is going to have that experience of expansion, of openness, of depth, you know, all of the important things that you've been sharing today.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm just the vehicle, right? Yes. Like these are the teachings coming through me that I'm sharing. And even, the women I have worked with previously, in as little as like under 2 weeks, are experiencing massive shifts in their life. So imagine what 3 months of daily practice will do.
Amazing. One of my final questions will be, what would this world look like if more women were connected to the power of their womb and more men understood women's cyclical nature?
Well, let me tell you.
The question of all questions.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I don't know for sure. But I would guess that the planet would not be in the critical state it's in right now. Part of being disconnected from our feminine nature means being disconnected from our big emotions. And one really important emotion is anger. Like, what's happening to our planet as a result of what? I can't think of the word. Starts with a C.
We know.
You know, the way we live our lives, purchasing stuff all the time, whatever that word is, consumerism. We would be in right relationship with the planet. We would be tending to the planet, and we would feel rage at what's occurring. And we would have the power and fearlessness to start to shift that. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be a utopia, I don't think. But a lot of the things we're doing that are really unhealthy and not working would be stopped because we wouldn't stand for it. We couldn't. There would be no way.
Ooh, well, I believe in a future that we are creating. And I believe by you sharing this type of work, me sharing more of these voices, like we really will make a change. Even if it's just one person at a time, we really will make a change. So I just want to thank you for doing your work in the world.
Oh, you're welcome. It is truly my pleasure.
Yeah. We have one question in the comments. I just want to read it. As a follow-up, can we have the name again of the woman who wrote the book on womb-friendly yoga?
Yeah, her name is Uma Dinsmore Tooley. Her book is called Yoni Shakti. So if you Google that, it'll come up right away. It's, it's a deep dive.
That is to be expected, I think, coming from you. You're always going into the deep depths, which I appreciate. How can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Tamara_Tiana on Instagram. And I have a website, tamaratiana.com, where you can find more information on the spiral path. And, reach out to me. Go on Instagram. Write me a message. I would love to have a conversation with you, answer your questions. Connect. I'd love it.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for being here.
Yeah, so fun. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here supporting this podcast, this live interview series. Really, one of the biggest goals is I want to bring this onto TV. I want to be sharing more of these powerful stories with the world, stories of empowerment, of hope, of inspiration, which is really what I think we need right now. So every bit of support, every bit of like and comment helps this initiative grow further and wider. So thank you guys all so much. And thank you, Tamara.
You're welcome.